Hi, Tshepo.
Hi, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. I'm well, thanks. Nice to meet you.
My pleasure. Tshepo will be having this chat with you today, uh, probably over the next 45 minutes. I'll introduce myself first, and then probably we'll dive into a few questions that we have for you. Hope you're having a good day.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, all good.
Okay, and we'll begin now. Okay. So we have Tshepo
Tshepo,
Moreki with us.
Yeah.
The gentleman has recently debuted against New Zealand, if I'm not wrong. He's one of the very few people who have been successful with their first international delivery and have taken a wicket on that. I can just imagine what a proud moment that would have been for you, sir. Just beginning this talk with your background, please announce yourself to our audience and let them know about you. I'll give the stage to you.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Durban. I went to school in Durban. I finished my high schooling at Northwood School. It's a school in Durban North, which has produced quite a few cricketers actually. In history, I think Robin Smith, who played for England, went there. Keshav Maharaj, and I were at school together actually. And I was much lower grade. I was in grade 8 or 9 when he was finishing what we call matric, the last year of school. So yeah, I got to know him a little bit when he was at school. And Sean Pollock went there as well, much earlier than both of us. But yeah, shortly after that, I played SR19 with some really good players. That's where I met the likes of KG. I played with them for the first time, and another teammate of mine now, Dave Bellingham, and yeah, a few other guys who have gone on to make their debuts for the Proteas. And shortly after that stint with the under-19s, I moved from Durban and I got offered a contract to go to Western Province. As a very young man, 19 or 20. And yeah, moved to Cape Town. I was there for quite some time. Loved my time in Cape Town. Loved playing for Western Province, or the Cape Cobras as they were known as at the time, before it became provinces again. And so yeah, I had a good time there. Spent 4 or 5 seasons there initially, and then at the Titans. And then I had, I think it was 3 seasons back at Western Province, before getting the opportunity to come up to the Lions here in Joburg, where I currently am. So this is my first season that I've just completed for the Lions. But yeah, I think with regard to, and I'll just transition into the debut and getting selected and all of that. I was fortunate enough to start going on a couple of SAA tours in the last sort of year, 18 months. The first one was to Sri Lanka. And there was some really good players who were involved in that trip as well. I think Tristan Stubbs was on that trip. He got a nice 100 in one of the 4-day games. Dilbert Brevis was on that trip. Some really good players, and it was a really great experience and first outing in the SAA team for me. And then shortly after that, when the season started, there was a West Indies tour to South Africa.
I think you were telling us about the...
No, it's fine. Yeah. So, yeah, shortly after that Sri Lanka tour and the season starting, there was a brief period of our domestic season, and then a few of us had to leave to play against the West Indies. It was an inbound tour. And yeah, we played a 3-match, 4-day series against the West Indians, their A side. A lot of those players actually who ended up going to Australia to play against the Aussies down under. Shamar Joseph was on that tour. Jaden Seals, and a few of the young guys who played so well down there. And yeah, then we had an SAA game against India, which was during the first test match against India as well. And so both the Proteas and the SA teams were staying at the same hotel. And so, yeah, we played against India at Benoni. And yeah, that was a great experience because the squad had changed, I think, a little bit during the one-day series against India, whereas a few of the one-day players were then added to the squad. I think Riku Singh was added, and Akshar Patel, Tilak Varma, Sai Sudarshan, and so they played in that game as well. And it was obviously a great experience to see them live in action and to bowl to them. And unfortunately, that game was cut short because of weather. December in the Highveld, it's always raining in summer. So yeah, we lost a couple of days in that game, but there were some good performances. And it was during that game when a few of us got the call that we were going to go to New Zealand. And so yeah, so that call came during that 4-day game, which was obviously fantastic. And then it was a bit of a break, the Christmas sort of break, New Year's and all of that. And then we reconvened, I think it was the 19th of January here in Joburg. And yeah, off we went to New Zealand. And that was obviously a great experience. And we were there for quite a few days before the first game. And yeah, played some warm-up matches and had some really good training sessions. But obviously, we're up against it. A really young, inexperienced group against a team that's been to the World Tennis Championship a few times, and that's always going to be an uphill battle. So we knew going in it was going to be difficult, and yeah.
I said, yeah, that's very, very good. So quite a bit of experience before your debut, right? So you have actually
Yes.
your international debut. You faced a lot of hardships. You faced a lot of trials and tribulations before you made your debut. Tell us something about that struggle period where you were probably excellent, probably one of the better cricketers in the whole of country, but just not reaching that limit, breaching that glass ceiling. How was the feeling at that point of time? And then also tell us about the feeling when you had the ball and you were, running into the sunset, going for that ball the first time you received the cap. And what's that? I can just imagine that kind of a feeling, representing your country and going in for that.
No. So I'll start with the trials and tribulations first. So I think most of the cricketers these days who get to make their debuts, it feels like the guys who are making their debuts are getting younger and younger. So for me, having played, I think it was 10 years of first-class cricket before making my debut, you start to think, oh, maybe this is not going to happen. You're not sure. You become a little bit more, has my chance slipped by me? And, I was probably a little bit unfortunate in that I was born in an era with, I'm the same age as Anwar Nokia. I played SR19 and similar ages to KG and Lungingiti, and so a lot of those, it was a competitive age group at the time, and so a lot of those guys shot up and they were playing for South Africa at a pretty young age. So yeah, that was difficult to sort of get through, and you try to put in performances and do well year in, year out, and and it's tough. You feel like sometimes maybe if I go play there, there's a lot of Proteas there, and I do well, maybe I'll get the nod or whatever the case is, and then with that, as a bowler, injuries, and then you feel like it's another setback, because any time out of the game is not good, especially in a very competitive fast bowling environment. Now you've got young guys like Gerald Fitzgerald, Marco Janssen, who have come through, who are much younger than me as well. So you start to maybe lose a little bit of hope and a little bit of faith, thinking, oh, this might not happen for me. So I think the way it happened was obviously there was a bit of good fortune in that with SA20 and the conflict between SA20 and that tour. And so for me personally, I looked at it as, well, this is your opportunity. This is what you've been waiting for, and it doesn't matter how it comes. That test cap is mine, and it's mine forever. So I looked at it that way. For me, all I wanted to do was, make my friends, family, and mostly myself proud because I've worked really, really hard for 10 seasons, and it was nice to get that moment. And then to fast forward to actually the warm-ups of that first test in Mount Maunganui, and Shukri Conrad, the test coach, he tapped me on the shoulder and said, you and Duan Olafia go pick a ball. You guys are opening the bowling today. And so then the heart starts to beat a little bit faster. And and then you realize you're half an hour away from your test debut, and that's a scary moment as well. And so I remember, like, it's I say now to my friends, I don't even remember the national anthems. It was such a high stress environment. That you go, what happened there? And then you get to that first ball. I'm standing top of my mark, and to be honest, my legs feel like jelly. And all I wanted to do really was make sure you just hit the pitch.
Nobody wants a beamer on their
first. 100%. You don't want to bowl the ball to first slip when you're first born. So so running in, I couldn't feel my legs, to be honest. And as I got to the popping crease, I load or whatever, and to my surprise, and sometimes the bowler, the ball just feels good coming out the hand. And I remember acknowledging that in that split second, that, that's come out nicely. And I'm generally quite a good bowler to left-handers, especially from around the wicket. So the ball nips back, it hits the pad, and even like in the appeal, I couldn't hear anything, but I was appealing, and then I think it was Richard Kettleborough was at the striker's end umpiring, and he puts his finger up, and obviously with DRS, there's a split second when your heart starts beating, because I think Latham and Devon Conway were having a conversation about, well, we'll send this upstairs or whatever, and eventually Devon, who I know really well actually, personally from years ago in Durban still, he just turns around and walks off, and that's the moment, and so it was surreal, to be honest, and it was just a nice little, it calmed my nerves more than anything, because at the end of the day, it's just cricket, but to get that opportunity to do that first up is like, okay, cool, you're off the mark, now it's just another game of cricket, and it's about bowling well and trying to create as much pressure as you can.
Entertaining, and it's so emotional when you're telling us all about your journey and your first delivery. It's simply it's simply overwhelming. So that's the word that I'm getting, and it must have been for you as well. I can totally imagine that. Tell me something about the psychology of a player in a game that's totally evolving. We see the game moving away from fast bowlers, away from bowling more or less. It's favoring more and more towards the bowler, towards the batsman. The game is shifting towards that end. And then, growing up, what made you feel that I want to be a bowler and a fast bowler at that? Whenever I talk to my siblings, whenever I talk to anybody who wants to be a cricketer, my suggestion is be anybody but a fast bowler, because the careers are very short. You can get injured at any time, and there is no success guaranteed in that, especially when it's hyper competitive in countries like India, Australia, South Africa. It's very, very difficult to make it to the top level, and one misstep, literally a misstep, and your ankles are gone probably.
No, you're spot on. I think for me, the culture that I grew up in high school and watching cricket initially, my early cricket memories were of watching Alan Donald, Makaya, or even later on guys like Dale. And so to see that passion, and we're still playing so much Test cricket, and we've got to remember when I was growing up, South Africa number one in the world for a very long time. So for me, in my mind, when you're a kid, it feels like it's going to last forever. That success. And so I didn't know anything but us winning Test series at home in Australia. In my whole adult life until very recently, I'd never seen South Africa lose a Test series in Australia.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So
totally. We also never saw South Africa lose. Beating South Africa in South Africa probably is one of those top pinnacle achievements that everybody in India wants to happen, but it never seems to happen.
Yeah, exactly. So growing up and being in a culture of fast bowling, and the pitches that they used to produce at the time were extremely, let's just say, fast bowler friendly. So as a youngster, you look at that and you go, oh, I want to do that, because that seemed like the cool thing to do at the time. And obviously T20, yeah, and it was, I think, the early onset of the IPL when I was in high school, and it hadn't become, I mean, the behemoth it's become now. With, it doesn't matter how big the ground is, it doesn't matter how experienced you are as a fast bowler. Some young man, a Jake Fraser McGurk, or these so many talented, like Yashasvi Jaiswal, for instance, a young guy who none of us had ever heard of 18 months ago, and you look at him play, and even having a look at him here in South Africa, you look at him play and go, jeepers, that guy's talented. And so growing up, I was, it was just the culture around fast bowling in South Africa was, and I think you can look around as well from the guys who have played for South Africa that are in and around my age now, your Nokias, Rabadas, we're all growing up in the same sort of culture. So I think the prevailing culture at the time was, well, it's cool to be a fast bowler. And I think things over 10 years evolved so quickly especially with just the sheer ability for batters to be able to access any part of the ground. Just the evolution of batting, I feel like has almost overtaken the evolution of bowling. It's there's only so many balls you can bowl. You know what I'm saying? Right. Your off-pace balls, your Yorkers, your bouncers, or whatever the case is. And you've got guys who score all around the ground. And so it's I think if I were 10 years younger, I'd probably either go the all-rounder route or definitely become a big hitting top order batter, because that seems to be where all the kids are playing and where all the money is made. Yeah.
Well, but having said that, I think still one of the most beautiful sights in cricket is probably that death rattle sound of a fast bowler charging in, bowling that ball, and the wickets just rolling, the stumps just rolling behind. That sound is beautiful. Probably
it's a wonderful sound.
Yeah, it's a beautiful sound whenever that happens.
No, for sure. It's my favorite sound in the world. That I can't lie. Yeah, so I think there's obviously still space for like some really good fast bowling and skilled bowling. I mean, you see a guy like I know he's recently retired, a guy like Vernon Philander. You've seen guys like Bhuvanesh Kumar. You've seen guys like who else can I think of now off the top of my head?
Jimmy Anderson, beautiful bowling by him.
100%. Yeah. I mean, and he's 41, and he's still there.
Yeah, yes.
You know what I'm saying? And so there's still obviously space for that, and it feels like probably more in the longer formats. And I mean, I was watching Sandeep Sharma bowl, I think it was last night or the night before in the T20, and he's still shaping the ball. And there is a place for good skills, but obviously with watching the IPL this year and the way the scores have been, it's sometimes it's some long nights for bowlers, and you've got to feel sorry as a fellow bowler, as a part of that club. You watch from a distance and you go, jeepers, I feel bad for those guys. But yeah, it's just, I think the evolution of batting it's reached heights that I don't think anybody could have imagined.
Right.
And I'm sure most kids will blame A.B. de Villiers, what he was able to do.
Sure. And understandably so. His skill in the game was outrageous, was at a different level. But at the same time, when A.B. de Villiers was, making us mesmerized by his 360-degree batting in the field, there was another fast bowler called Dale Steyn who was also equally mesmerizing us.
Oh yeah.
With the beautiful bowling that he would do. On his day, he was virtually unplayed.
No, 100%. And I've had the good fortune of playing with Dale for two separate teams at Western Province and at the Titans. And to me, and this is maybe a little bit of a bias because I know him personally, but to me, the greatest fast bowler I've ever seen. And to stand on the field, and as a kid, I watched him in high school. I watched him on TV, winning us test matches, getting a 7 for India, with the reverse swinging ball, getting fifers in Australia. And then you get to your professional level, and you're then standing across from a guy and you're in training with him every single day, and you see him operate. And he operates at such a high level. And to then see his just sheer tenacity, his grit, and, you know, I'm sure most people have said this who have met him in interviews, just the nicest guy, quite a quiet guy off the field. But once he gets over that rope, he's, you know, you can see the fire in his eyes. And so just to me, like it's poetry in motion. Watching him bowl, when he's got it going, it's second to none.
Yeah, totally 100% agree with that. It's poetry in motion is probably what I define Dale Steyn bowling. Yeah,
no, for sure.
So I understand that. So, but growing up, who do you consider to be your role model? I'll tell you why I'm asking this question, because when I was researching you, almost everybody in the comment sections of your first wicket was probably telling this guy is Makhaya regenerated. So
yeah, I mean, I didn't see myself bowl until probably S19, because when we were at school and it was pre-pitch vision and all these new apps that have come out that record schoolboy games and club games and all that sort of stuff. So I hadn't seen myself bowl for a while, and so it always feels different than it looks. And so when I started seeing myself on film in games, the action, there was a lot of Makhaya in there, and I think as well, I don't even know where it came from, because I mean, I was a big fan of Makhaya, obviously, as most South African kids were at the time. Quality fast bowler, did his thing for a long time for South Africa. But I just maybe think it was something that came naturally to me, and thankfully for me, I wasn't really overcoached. I didn't have any private school I didn't have any private coaching growing up at all. The first time I ever coached was when I played organised cricket. And thankfully for me, a lot of those coaches didn't really tinker with too many things. I mean, obviously, as you get older, you make, you tweak some things here and there to add consistency, to maybe stop you from getting injured or whatever the case is. But yeah, that Makhaya comparison has come up a lot. It's come up with even him as well. So, and he's someone, he commentates in domestic cricket here quite a lot. Whenever I see him, it's always good to have a chat with him and stuff. And he's always been supportive with me especially. And yeah, it was, it's great. He's a great guy to know. Just like a barrel of laughs, very, he lights up a room. He's one of those guys, very jovial, very joyful guy, fantastic as well. Some people, weirdly. But yeah, that's Makhaya is probably the one that I get the most.
Yeah, you talked about the support you got from Makhaya over the years, but I'm pretty sure that your family's support throughout those 10 years of domestic cricket would have been substantial as well. Tell us about how important it is for a sports person to have a good backing of their family, and what was their feeling when you finally had your breakthrough, when you finally were selected for the tour and you went in and played.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the support that they gave me, and I'm a pretty independent person, so I left home when I was either 19 or 20, and I've obviously never moved back to Durban, and I've sort of been out on my own for the better part of my adult life. So yeah, the support that I got from them was for them just giving me their blessing to go out there, and obviously in South Africa there's a big culture of you go to a decent school, you've got to get into university. Cricket's a risk, all sports is a risk, and rather get a degree and to do this and do that. And so, I got the full backing and support for them to go out and do it. And you can figure out the other stuff later. And so they just let me go, as opposed to saying, no, you've got to do it this way, you've got to do it that way. And so, yeah, they've been really, really good. And whenever I'm in Durban to play against the Dolphins, the domestic team in Durban, they're always there. I'm always supporting. And my grandmother, who's 81, she's my biggest supporter and biggest critic. She watches every single game, and I know whether I bowled well or bowled badly. It'll be the first message that always comes up on my phone when we get our phones back after the game is, you should have done this, or you should have done that, or well bowled tonight, or whatever the case. And so that was the same. In New Zealand, when we played the first test, it would have been 1 a.m. in South Africa. And I mean, as an 81-year-old woman, she was up all night watching the whole first session. And so she's ultra supportive, and she's obviously retired now, but she never misses a game. And yeah, she thinks she's a bowling coach actually. She's always giving advice about this and that and what she thinks I should be doing. So that's it's my number one supporter by a margin. Yeah.
That's incredible. Exactly what I thought. It would be. What's your feeling about somebody who actually is, there are probably in a hyper-competitive environment like you face in South Africa. I would assume probably in India it's more competitive because the sheer number of people that are by parlance of population here is so high that there probably are so many people who are struggling to go into that. What would be your motivational advice to a young fast bowler in India who's trying to make it into that, who's probably not breaking it into the next step that they want to take? If they are probably in their high school team, they're not able to make it to their district level. Somebody in the district level is probably not able to make it to the state, and then from state to the national team. So what is your one advice to a young cricketer, young fast bowler, how to be persistent about their hard work?
Yeah, for me, I think obviously work ethic and hard work is number one. It always is. But to me, and this is something that I wish I could have learned earlier, I think it could have helped me progress and maybe get to the highest level sooner. And it's something I learned from Bernard Philander, incidentally. When I got a little bit older at Western Province, I could understand it more. Was always work on your skill. The ability to consistently land the ball where you want it to land. The pace and stuff you can build. Pace is something you can build in the gym. Pace is something you can build with your run-up and getting rhythm, and you can always find more pace. But I feel like there's a certain point at which that it becomes, we young guys, they see it's sexy to be a fast bowler, to be 150, Breakley, Anrich Nokia, Umesh Yadav, guys who are quick bowlers. But for me, there'll always be a place for a guy with good skill, and you can always couple that good skill with pace after the fact. But yeah, that to me is focus on your skill and be a master at your craft. Know where the ball is going. If you want to land a Yorker, land a Yorker. If you want to land a good length ball swing in, you watch Bobby. He's still doing the thing, and to me, that longevity is created, I think, through that just consistent sheer hard work and being able to be, and not just consistent in the way that you work, consistent in the way that you produce in games. Because I think that'll widen your margin for error in terms of you'll have more good days than bad days. And I think in the long run, not everybody gets their chest call up at 19 or 20, exercising some patience. There's been a whole host of, in South Africa especially, I can only use our country as an example because I know of the people, but Carl Abbott, who made his debut later on in his career, Vernon Philander, who ended up being one of South Africa's greatest ever fast bowler, made his test debut much later on in his career. So there's no substitute for having good skills, because there'll always be a place in the game for a bowler with good skills. And what do guys who can bowl really, really fast when they're young, what do? They get injured. And the moment you get injured, you lose pace. And then if you don't have something else to go back to, then it's a very tough road back. So that would be the advice that I would give them. And fitness. Don't neglect your fitness. I think South Africa obviously we have a great culture of, I think, especially with the fast bowlers, is some of the fittest guys on the team, and they're running 2K time trials and like all that sort of testing that they do to see whether you're fit or not. I think that's important because it's a grueling job. we've just finished our longest ever season here in South Africa. And for me, it started in last July in Sri Lanka. I played 14 first-class games this year, including a few SAA games, 2 test matches, and all that sort of stuff. And from July to the season ended last week Sunday. From July 2023 to last week Sunday in 2024, it's a long season. And so,
Wow.
the best ability is availability. And so, that's what I would say is stay fit always, and make sure there isn't a day where you aren't thinking about or working on your skills.
The best ability is availability, and the second key takeaway for the young bowlers is, when you get injured, if you don't have your skill to back you up, you'll probably be out of contention. So work on your skills.
100%.
Who do you think are your 4 contenders for the upcoming World Cup?
4 contenders. So you've always got to go with Australia, because for some reason they always find a way in knockout cricket. It doesn't matter what their form is going into the competition.
They're bad boys of cricket.
100%.
The arch nemesis of almost every nation that there is.
Exactly. So Australia definitely. I think India, in terms of talent, man for man, are the most talented team. With potentially Pandya at 6 and Jadeja at 7. Those are frontline bowlers who bat in your top 7, and you can still pick more bowlers. So I mean, having that, you guys are sort of spoiled for choice in that department. So India, another one. So I said Australia, I said India, New Zealand. I like a lot in knockout cricket as well. They're one of those teams that they just do all of the simple things well. They're a great fielding outfit. They've got a couple of game breakers and X-factor players, and some experience as well in that group. So I think I like them, and I have to say the Proteas as well. So that would be my top 4.
Right.
Better.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are continuing our conversation with Tshepo, and we are taking this conversation ahead. We were discussing the top 4 contenders, and you said, if I'm not wrong, Australia, India, New Zealand, and South Africa. Out of these, I have one boon to pick. I don't know why, and I think this is a common pain that we all share. But we both, probably India as well as South Africa, we both have been at different times the favorites to win competitions. We have been playing brilliantly. And you, as an international cricketer, will probably understand that it is such high stakes at that level. What happens that, sometimes when it looks almost inevitable that you'll win, sometimes it just is not going to happen. You probably have faced that.
Yeah, I'm both a fan of cricket first. I was a fan of cricket first.
Yes.
So you see teams almost the pressure gets to them in big moments.
I'll tell you why I'm questioning this. Let me try to explain it first. Because from an outsider point of view, you usually blame the mentality of the players. You usually feel that they don't have the mental fortitude to accept that kind of a challenge, which I understand probably is not the truth. Because you have probably been there, you probably understand the people who would have faced that kind of a competition and have reached that level of game. They probably can take everything, come what it may. But it's sometimes just not the day. And I don't know why, but I'd like to ask that question.
Yeah, I mean,
you have an insider as well as an outsider's view to that problem.
Yeah, for sure. And I think for me personally, you look at certain moments in games, and it's about who can. Oftentimes, I think it's about who can take themselves out of the situation and look at it logically. Because when pressure's on, there is a heightened sense of emotion, and often emotion clouds judgment. And in those moments, I think it's about who can have the most sound judgment. Who can go, okay, cool, what's the simplest thing to do here? When all of the stuff is going on in my head, there's 100,000 people in the stands or whatever the case is, and can I can I take myself out of my body and look at this objectively and go, what's the best ball to bowl on? Or what's the best option you have to take with the bat? Or which is the bowler we should look to take down? Or and so for me, I just think it's that skill, I think, and very few. It's a skill that I think MS Dhoni is one who came closest, I think, to perfecting the skill of. He could almost, if you watch cricket or you play a lot of cricket, you can see some guys are better than others. You can see that in Dhoni's eyes, where it's as if he's observing the game as a fan while he's standing at 20 yards away from a bowler. Yeah. So his clarity of thought in that moment is the best. It's the best I've ever seen personally. And to be honest, I think it's about simplifying things, not complicating them, because there are already so many distractions and complications in moments like that. Everyone's giving you their advice, and especially from a bowler's point of view, you know, your captain comes over, he's got something to say. Someone comes from extra cover, and he's got an opinion on what the field should be or whatever. And there's a lot of things happening, a lot of those moments, and the crowd you can barely hear yourself think, and the crowd is going, it's loud, and you're oftentimes facing somebody who's a world-class player at the other end. You know what I'm saying? So to me, I just think, and obviously not having been in those sort of World Cup moments, it's hard to feel what that feels like, because it must be so overwhelming, that feeling. And you see it even with Ben Stokes, his ability to just know what the right thing to do is. I mean, that's such an underrated skill. In the midst of chaos and confusion and distraction and pressure, just the one person who's able to just take a breath and think about, what does the team need from me now, and what's the simplest, easiest thing to do here that can get us to the outcome that we want. And that, to me, I think is what separates the perennial winners from the teams that are always, I think, there or thereabouts, or the teams that are, I mean, what you say, like teams, South Africa, New Zealand, teams that are really good in tournaments, and then you get to the one and done games, and there's pressure in those moments. And I think culturally, I'd like to say that probably Australians have probably lived in that moment for a lot longer, so a lot more of them are more calm than the opposition. Yeah. So more than one person is able to make a clear, thoughtful decision in a time where it's the midst of chaos. So yeah, that's what I think it is, and because I don't think it's a skill thing. All these guys play against each other all the time, and you see guys do well, you see guys make hundreds, and that's what it is. And sometimes as well, like, you've got to be honest with yourself. And as South Africans, we've got such pride that we don't feel like, no, this team should never have beaten us. We're the better team on the day. Sometimes you just get beaten by a better team. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know how much rugby you've seen or watched, but it's a religion here in South Africa, rugby. And South Africa, we've won the World Cup. South Africa won the World Cup the most of any country, the Rugby World Cup. And the Springboks, or the South African national rugby team, have that thing that Australia have. Whereas if it's a World Cup final and the chips are all pushed to the middle of the table, we just make better decisions than the opposition in crunch moments. And that's so that's what I think speaking as a Proteas fan, from that point of view, that's the sort of energy we need to try and replicate, is you know, taking yourself sort of out of that situation and going, okay, what does the team need from me now in order for us to win? And having the clarity of thought that you would in any other round robin game if you're playing against, you know, whoever. And because I mean, it's just a game of cricket at the end of the day. But obviously, pressure. What do they say? Pressure either makes diamonds or busts pipes. So that's the thing. And yeah, it's hard. You know, it's hard.
So I have a theory, and this is something that I would say more than 50% of people disagree with me on this. But I have this theory that says that if you're looking for a world champion, it should not necessarily be decided by a one-off knockout round. So you look at NBA, it is decided over best of seven games. Yeah. If you check out those kind of, and when you're playing the same opponent 7 times, it is almost impossible that a worse team can probably win it on their lucky day. So
Exactly.
more times than often, you'll always come up with the most talented team winning the World Cup and being crowned the rightful world champion. So
Yes.
if you're having a tournament once in 4 years, why not have it for an extended period and play
Mhm.
it home and away on seven
Yeah.
games and then decide what would be the best champion team out of those?
Yeah. I mean, I've never heard that before, but I think it's an interesting idea. It definitely is interesting because I also think, okay, the first thing you'd have to do is it would have to be fewer teams
Yep.
in the World Cup. So
Fewer
my
teams,
thing is
more games.
the same, because you could, I think if there were fewer teams, you could sort of have in and around the same amount of games if there's fewer teams, including the final being a 7-game series. So I think it's an interesting idea for sure. And like you say, in 7 games, the best team will win in the end. It's just too many games for the worst team to put up too much of a fight. I mean, it's like in a test match, there's very few test matches that are upsets.
Yeah.
There's too many days. There's too many things you can do wrong against a good team for you to be able to win a test match. And I think it's the old adage I've heard from many guys, South African guys who play test cricket. You can't win a test match in a series, but you can in a session, but you can lose one. And so the team that makes the fewer mistakes in a test match will inevitably win. And so the better team makes fewer mistakes.
Yeah.
And so inevitably, I think in a 7-game series for a World Cup type situation for a final, the better team will just make fewer mistakes in the end, and the worst team would end up beating themselves.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So for me, I just think I think that's an interesting idea, and I think it's one worth thinking about more. Yeah. I haven't thought about it, but I'll give it some thought. Yeah.
Sure thing. What do you think would be if given a choice, and I'm just changing directions here probably. If given a choice, who do you think would be somebody that you'd want to sit and have a conversation with about cricket?
Mm-hmm.
And who do you think, out of the history of all the cricketers that are there, name 3 cricketers that you'd love to bowl to as a challenge to yourself?
Oh wow. The player I'd like to have a conversation with, Virat Kohli.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. I've obviously got friends who've played Test cricket against him a lot, or international cricket in general, and they have spoken to him. I would just like to know how he's able to maintain that competitive stamina. That mentality, and I consider myself a really competitive cricketer, a really competitive person. But he's on another level. I mean, he's on another level to world-class players when it comes to mentality and desire, always being up for the fight, just his intensity around the game. And I would like to know how I mean, that would be what the conversation would be about, is how do you keep yourself fresh mentally away from cricket to be able to be that intense all the time when you play? You know what I'm saying? And he's always up for the fight, always up for the challenge, and oftentimes in India need him the most. I think of that game against Pakistan at Optus in Australia, where India had no right to win that game. And he plays, to me, I know he can get 100 or whatever the case is. That was one of the best knocks. I was watching it with teammates. We had a rain delay. It was during the season. Because obviously it was in Australia. We had a rain delay in a one-day cup game. And it was on the TV. And so we got to watch the majority of his innings. It was one of the most special knocks I've ever seen. Under the conditions, you've got Harris Ralph and Shaky Shah bowling the Rockets. It's the quickest wicket I've ever seen in the world. The ball's flying through. And I mean, the shot he played off Harris Ralph over the top for 6 on the up. We still talk about that shot now. In our change room, you know. But how on earth?
We all do. We all do. It's a conversation. It's a lunch conversation we have in our offices. It's a dinner conversation we have with our families.
It's insane. And so for me, like those are sort of questions I'd like to ask. How he's able to be there for the fight every single time. And then 3 batters I'd like to bowl to, and this would be more of a pie in the sky thing because of how big of a fan I am of theirs. Would be Viv Richards, definitely. Sachin, another one, Tendulkar, and Jacques Kallis, who's, Western Province boy. Obviously, I missed him. I missed his career. I started playing in 2014, 15. He retired in 2014. And if he had stayed another year or two, or whatever, we would have been teammates the Western Province. It would be great. But yeah, he's my favorite cricketer of all time, to be honest. Kallis, like the Swiss Army knife of cricket. Whatever you need from him, he'll give it.
He probably will be one of those bowlers you'd like to bowl along with as well, not just that bowl too.
Yeah, exactly. And like you want to have him at slip as well, catching for you. So yeah, those are the 3 guys that growing up, and obviously like not knowing too much about Viv Richards until the documentary Fire in Babylon came out, and then as kids do, once you find something that you really enjoy and like, and you go down the rabbit hole on YouTube just finding Viv Richards videos. You know what I'm saying? And listening to people
that
talk
man's
about it.
swagger is something that I have not seen till today. In the black and white grainy images and grainy videos of those eras, he still exudes a swagger that is unmatched even today.
His personality comes out the screen.
Yes.
It's just so in a time where I think it was. Nowadays almost all the great players have a swagger, a way about them. And you look at like videos of the '75 World Cup in England, and you're like, this guy's strutting around like he owns the place.
Yes.
And then he mops his guard, and then he does own the place. So it's just wonderful to watch. And also very. He's one of the very few players who played in a generation much longer or further back to ours, who his cricket resembles what cricket looks like now, the way he bats, his style of batting. There are batters who still bat like the way he bats. And so I think he was probably a lot of our heroes' hero, Viv Richards, So yeah, those 3. And Sachin Tendulkar, you don't need to say any more than that, really. That's all you need to say. And Jacques Kallis, just because of how big of a fan I am of his. And maybe honourable mention to Brian Lara. He was, one of the. There isn't anyone more fun to watch than Brian Lara in full flow. So yeah.
Okay, I have one more question. The cricketers that you're mentioning, the way that you approach your game, I think it's very, very evident from the conversation that I'm having, that if I'm going to ask you a question to choose between T20 and Test cricket, your answer probably is going to be Test cricket. You seem to be a fan of the longer format of the game. I am always curious as an outsider whenever I'm looking at it. It is easier for a person to for an athlete to come and compete for, let's say, 4 overs. You have to bowl the best 4 overs for yourself in a T20 game, probably 10 overs in a one-day international game. What is the allure, or what is the charm of the longer format of the game that so many cricketers seem to enjoy?
Yeah. First, I'll start by saying I love T20 cricket. I love playing it. I love bowling in it. I just haven't played in a while. I just haven't got an opportunity, whether it be through injury or. It's just been a format that's eluded me. I played my first T20 game for a long time, this past T20 competition after the SA20. So yeah, no, I do love the game, and I've actually fortunately I've got a pretty good record in T20 as well. But you're right, I do love I do love red ball cricket. Like I said earlier, I just like how in a world that we live in, that, and this is going to be a little bit philosophical, I think in a world that you live in that's quite unfair, I think it's the most fair way to determine who the best man is. There's just too many days and too many sessions for there to be a fluke result or something untoward to happen. I just think 4 days in the dirt, your bowlers against our bowlers against your batters against our bowlers, and we duke it out for 4 days, 3 sessions each day, 90 overs in the day, and the best team will end up winning. Whereas you feel sometimes in T20 cricket, one team could be vastly better than the other, and then one guy in the opposition has the day of his life. You look at a situation like, and not to say that Afghanistan are better than Australia, but that game, if Afghanistan win that game, Australia are out.
Yeah.
Glenn Maxwell makes 200. He was the difference. One man was the difference in that game.
That probably is the greatest inning of all time in one-day international cricket.
You know what I'm
I
saying?
would argue, you might say that's Virat Kohli. I would probably argue on that one.
Yeah, I mean, and also the significance of it as well. Now that you think about it, that's a do or die game. That's essentially a quarterfinal.
Yeah.
If they lose that game, if he gets out, caught at 45, whoever he kicked the ball to, that's the end of their tournament. They're gone.
Yeah.
That then propels them into the playoffs, and they end up winning the World Cup. So I mean, that's a very valid point actually. But so yeah, I mean, that's for me why I love Test cricket, why I love 4-day cricket so much is, 4 traditional days of cricket. The team that outskills, outsmarts, and outlongs the other team, more often than not, more, I would say almost 99% of the time, they'll come out on top. I've something that I wanted to do when I early in my career. I didn't play a lot of. I played a lot of 4-day cricket, but I was in a really good bowling attack at Western Province. I didn't bowl many overs, and my record wasn't the way I wanted it to be. And so in the last 2.5 years, I really have focused on red ball cricket, and it's come on, I think, in leaps and bounds. And so once you start to see the results as well of work, of things you're putting in and training and whatever the case is, that also elevates the enjoyment, because you're then able to, once you're able to take what you're doing in training and move it into the stressful, high pressure environment of an actual match, 22 yards away from an actual batsman and not a cone in the nets, then you're able to be more proud of the work you've done pre-match. And so for me personally, and I think with the Lions, the team I play for here, we won the 4-day competition and we won the T20 competition this year. And that was really pleasing to play against a Western Province team with Tony DeZorzi and Cal Verreynne and David Bellingham, that sort of a team, but Andre Berger, and being able to beat them in a final. And we've also got a good team, to be fair. And that was a closely fought game. And the reason it goes to the last day, it's a 5-day game, so it was the last session of the last day of all 5. And, there were 300s, 3 fifers. The skill sets that were on show were really pleasing for domestic cricket in South Africa. Just the quality of cricket that was on show was really, really great. And it was 2 teams that were evenly matched. And that's why it gets to the last hour of the last day of the last session of the 5 days. And that's pleasing as a player. I don't know what happened there. That's pleasing as a player. And so, yeah, that's why I love that format so much.
Beautiful. Yeah, I can totally understand that. But yeah, I would still prefer, from an audience perspective, I think T20 cricket is much more appetizing and much more accessible than Test cricket. Okay.
Yeah, no, true.
The next question that I have is probably a little bit selfish for me. No wrong answers, of course. But is there any IPL team that you support?
Any
IPL team that you support? And hold on for a second. You are allowed to say none, or you are allowed to say that I would rather not answer that, because I would love to see you come and play in India with us, and I'd love to meet you face to face if given a chance as well.
I would love that. Listen, I would love nothing more, and I want all the Indian fans to hear this. I would love nothing more than to play in the IPL. I mean, it looks like it's an absolute spectacle. The way it's done, the way it's produced. I mean, we get it here on Super Sport in South Africa every single game. And it looks a fantastic tournament. And I know so many guys personally are there now, who have been there in the past, and I mean, they just love their experience. It's cricket like, and the way they always describe it, it's cricket like you've never seen it before. It's, I think it's a bit like playing football in England, where the passion and it's just so, it just oozes out of people. They can't help themselves. I mean, the passion, the desire to see their teams do well. I support, this is the most patriotic thing I can say, because it's also true. I support whichever team has the most South African. That's normally which I support. So early on in the IPL, I support the Royal Challengers Bangalore, because I think Ray Jennings was the coach, Callis was there, Boucher was there,
AB de Villiers was there for a long time.
Kevin Peterson is also sort of South African, so he was there as well. So that's generally like my rule of thumb, because I've also got friends who play in multiple teams as well. I played with KG earlier in the T20 competition, our competition, before he went over to the IPL. The first 3 games he played, and he's at Punjab, I think. So I think I would have to say SRH at the moment.
Okay.
It's probably the team I support, with Aiden, Klaassen, Janssen there. So that's the team I probably have to say I support for now.
Well, they're performing pretty well in this
and unbelievably well. Yeah.
That's a good choice. That's a good pick.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
I also have a question. So, and this is actually a question that was asked to me by one of my friends, and I'm very curious to understand. In international cricket, when you're talking about bowling partnerships, what constitutes as a great bowling partner? So there is a lot of setting up of a batsman and then going for the attack. Sometimes one bowler is given the duty to just restrict the other end. The other one is the attacking one. So what constitutes as a great partnership in your eyes? A great bowling partnership?
Yeah, I think a great bowling partnership, is firstly understanding what your role is. I think is the biggest thing obviously the team is 11 guys in the team, but that bowling unit is also a team. Because more often than not, it's the 4 or 5 of you out there, 4 seamers maybe, or 3 seamers, an all-rounder and a spinner operating an attack, and it's your job to bowl the opposition out. So it can be quite a daunting task, especially I look at 4-day cricket as an example. Having to take 20 wickets is hard, obviously. So I think you all need to understand what you guys bring to the table in that attack. That's probably the most important thing I'd say to start off with. And then also having the game awareness, because the roles sometimes may change. The ball might come out for somebody great on a day, and then you've got to understand that the other guy, even if you're normally the one who attacked, that okay, now I'm bowling for him. He's got it going, and my job here is to offer the best support that I can. And so for me, I just think and I think it's lacked a lot now with younger players who don't play enough, probably 4-day or declaration style cricket growing up, as much as it used to be in South Africa. Because most South Africans now, most South African young players, they play 50 over cricket and T20 cricket throughout their whole high school and career, whereas we used to have some 2-day games and all that sort of stuff. So you get a taste of everything before you are out of school even. So I just think being aware enough in the match to go, I'm not competing with him now. He took 2 wickets in that over, I must take 2 wickets in that over. That's not how it works. What your job and role will be once a guy is hot is to offer him support. Because he then becomes the attacker, the strike bowler in that moment. And then he's got the leeway to then try more things because he's got it going on the day. And you've just got to, and I've been that guy many times where I think that guy at the other end is, they're red hot, and you've just got to sit in and offer them just great support. Make sure that if they go for a boundary here, I back it up with a maiden. If he takes a wicket there, I keep backing it up with a maiden. I don't get greedy. Just keep doing your job. Because oftentimes in games, like those will be the unsung heroes, guys who maybe got 2 for 50 in 20 overs. He got a 2.5 runs and over, only got a couple of sticks maybe at the back end of the innings, but he helped the guy who got 6 for 45 in 13 overs, who went for 3.8 but took 6 wickets. And so I think for me, in the partnership stakes, I think it works very much about, number one, understanding what your general role is within the group, and then also being able to recognize in the moment, being aware enough, having some cricket like nous and intelligence to realize, it's his day today, or even understanding when it's your day, and knowing that, okay, cool, now it's my job here to attack because I'm swinging around corners, or the ball's coming out quickly, or whatever the case is, once you become a strike bowler. So for me, those are the two most important things when it comes to bowling and partnerships. And also, even once it gets to days 4 and 5, there's a couple of wickets in South Africa that spin. And even as a seamer, understanding what your role then becomes in supporting the spinner on day 3 or day 4 is, normally the spinners are doing a job for us on day 1, maybe giving us a bit of a rest, just holding up an end or whatever the case is. Those roles are reversed as the game progresses and the wickets begin to deteriorate.
Yes.
You then become the guy who has to try and hold the game for the spinner and allow him to go to work and bowl into the rough and all that sort of good fun stuff that spinners get to do at the end of games, of 4 games. I just think it's understanding partnerships, bowling partnerships is about, I think, having some cricket awareness and some cricket intelligence, and it's something that I learned through watching games of cricket at a young age. And you see how people operate. You go, okay, Dale Steyn's running in a bowling 145 and swinging the ball to the keeper, and Vernon Fernandez just sitting in on a lane, just asking good questions. Kyle Abbott is really good at that as well. Just heading in here, banging away all day, all afternoon, and letting Dale go to work. And there'll be days where Vern will get 6 wickets in 7 overs. You know what I'm saying? Like, again, and ball Australia out for 43. You'll have days like that as well. So I think it's just about like that awareness around the group. And I think the more a certain group of bowlers, and you'll see this as well, the more a group stays together, the more people begin to understand what their role is in the group, and it doesn't take a conversation. You look at the Australian team attack now, with Cummins, Hazelwood, Stark, Lyon. No one used to, like, when on the day in a test match, they know how to operate. If Stark's got a couple early, Pat Cummins holds a length. If Cummins is on it, then Hazelwood just holds a length. So the longer you play together, those dynamics, you get to understand each other more as people and as bowlers. And I think you're able to then, I don't think it's a coincidence that they found so much success as a group. Like the Proteas with Dale and Vernon and KG, or with Pollock and Makaya and a young Dale Steyn, Morne Morkley. When guys play together a lot, I think you tend to get that understanding, and it's a lot easier to recognize.
Yes, it's insightful. Thank you very much for that answer.
No, it's all good.
Yeah. I think we have one last question for you, and this is a very, very big question. Probably can't be summarized in a few minutes. But where do you see yourself going from here? That's one. And I don't expect you to, end it in a sentence or something. But yeah, what are your aims for the next season? That's one. And how do you want to, any message for your fans? What is going to come for them? And then we can probably end this conversation at that.
Yeah. So for me, a couple of just sort of short term. I don't like to look too far ahead. I found that keeps me from staying in the present. So for me, that the immediate goals are I'd like to get into the SA20. That's one that I really, really would like to look forward to. Just, you look at that competition, you look at the way, like, the Indian ownership has sort of revived South African T20 cricket. It's a spectacle, the quality of player that comes and plays in that competition. So for me, I'd like to be a part of that and just see what that's like firsthand. And obviously it's our domestic T20 competition. So yeah, that would be, I think it's a draft or auction or whatever in around August, September, that time of the year. So that's only 3 months away. So in the short term, that. It's very important to me. And then there are a couple of, I think, Red Bull tours, SAA, and whatever that I'd really like to be a part of. I think one to the West Indies, and just keep my name in the mix. You never know when, and obviously, God forbid, you don't want anyone to ever get injured, but you want to be able to put in performances that prove that if somebody does lose form or unfortunately gets nicked up and is injured or whatever the case is, that you're ready to make that jump up and replace that person. So for me, just keep working at my Red Bull cricket. Looking to play. Obviously, once you get a taste of, I played 2 Test matches now, and once you get a taste of that, it's obviously we've got to hide it, but to get into the main team, that's a goal of mine. That's stake a claim and try to see if I can get myself in there. And then SA20. And in terms of what fans should expect, I think just more growth, more consistency. I really am obsessed with cricket. So if I'm not talking about it with friends of mine or discussing it, I had lunch with a friend of mine, Zubair Hamza, who's also a batter, plays for the Lions, and he's played a few games for the Proteas as well. And we sat at lunch for about 3 hours. It's supposed to be off season, discussing cricket, or watching it on TV and watching. I'll watch any cricket. I'll put on a live county stream, for goodness sake. So for me, I just want to improve, and give myself the best chance of not having any regrets with anything that happened in my cricket career. So that's the shortest possible answer I can give you.
That's fair. I expected nothing less.
I appreciate it.
It has been a beautiful, beautiful conversation with you, Tshepo. Really, really an honor to have this conversation. I hope whenever you're next in India, do give me a chance to host you. I'd love to meet.
Definitely.
Love to take you out for a dinner or a lunch. Let me know. The pizza will not be the Indian pizza, maybe some makni sauce or something like that. But please. It was really, really, as a cricketing fan, as a fan of the game, it's really, really insightful knowing you. Thank you so much for this conversation. Really, really enjoyed this.
I appreciate it so much, man. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation as well.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Cheers.
All the best. All the best for SA. South Africa 20.
The orchard.
I'll be watching for you. I'll be rooting for you.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
See you. Bye.
Cheers, man.